Welcome to another episode. Today I have a very special episode for you, which I will call The Secrets of Character Design, because I want to find out all the secrets from a very special person I've met at Brainstorm. Welcome Gue Yang to this episode. I'm very happy to have you here. Gue is a character concept artist at Turtle Rock Studios. So I asked the community about a lot of questions, what they would have for a character designer, character artist. I was pretty overwhelmed by that. So we have really a lot of questions for Gue tonight. And if you appreciate all the time and effort we spend on that, just feel free to give it a thumbs up, share it if it's informative, and also make sure to give Gue maybe a nice comment, a little thank you. I think that would be awesome, just to appreciate the time he's spending with us today. So, but before we start with all the questions, Gue, can you introduce yourself just for the people who don't know you yet?
Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, that's really appreciate it, and my pleasure for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gue Yang. I'm a character concept artist at Turtle Rock Studios right now. A little background, I've been around the industry for like 10 years. I went to the Academy of Arts for my education, studied fine arts. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to have really good mentors in the fine art department, right? Because I already knew what I was going to do at the time, which was concept art, game dev. So I went straight into building up my fundamentals. So I was fortunate enough to have good teachers there. And I kind of just built up my career from, I started out in the Bay Area, was in the mobile gaming industry for like 10 years. Yeah, then I kind of switched off to coming here in SoCal for a little bit of AAA, get my feet wet on there. But yeah, I've been doing character design ever since I can remember. So that's a little intro on me.
Nice. And so for how long did you work as a character artist?
I think like as junior artists, we all start doing a little bit of everything, just concept art, just designing, just solving problems in general. And I think not until I started doing more marketing art, because in the mobile industry, you kind of do production art, but once the game wraps up or once you get close to production milestone, you start marketing assets, start doing splash, start doing character art. So I kind of got into that sort of like discipline, and I stuck there ever since I started. So that's what kept me sort of in the character art sort of pipeline. And from there, I just started doing character concepts, character marketing. I just kind of continue on that route from there on.
Wow, very interesting. So you basically started as a concept designer, but you went into the character field later on, just from doing props and everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, from an industry standpoint, as what I study and what I actually do, like if you look at my portfolio, basically it's all people, it's all portrait, it's all like character. So I always sort of gravitate towards that from an education standpoint. But from an industry standpoint, like we all start like designing. And then if we can get our feet into a certain department like marketing or character-centric stuff, then you do well on that, then they kind of keep you on that and you build your portfolio based on that as you move on in your career. Basically.
And do you remember maybe what did you had in your portfolio when you applied for your first job?
My first job? Oh man, I think I always kept traditional art. I always kept painting just to see, just so people can sort of know your education and background and what you're good at. And then I kept more digital painting, illustrations of character, like basically character focused stuff. I don't know exactly what they are right now. They're long lost in the web somewhere. I don't have specific examples right now, but those are what I had in my portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say when someone started with deciding that they want to be a character artist in specific, we know that there are not many jobs in that field. Do you think it is harsh to get right away into character design right from the get-go? As a student
who's learning, you're asking? Yeah, the thing, like you mentioned, I think the character designer, character concept role is a very niche role, right? Like it's very hard to get into because you should consider yourself like sort of a senior person at this point. Like you understand all the fundamentals. You're just a designer now because you went through all that stuff. So you're an expert at what you do. Basically, you're being hired as a senior concept artist. So you should have a lot of experience to back up. I think if you're just beginning, it's better to go through foundation stuff, perspective, to make sure you master all that, because it's so competitive. You want to be the best of the best once you get to that. Once you're applying for that job, you want to make sure you're the best like character designer. You're not just like a junior or a mid.
So you think that it would be even harder to get a job as character artist if you have, for example, the lack of experience. You need to showcase that you're able to work in that pipeline to get the things done. Because I think what is also a very important point is that studios giving the character artist, the character designer, certain trust to really come up with their, let's say it's a new project.
Yeah.
So in a blue sky phase, they want them to really get the character they really want. So it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of trust, and giving the trust to someone who's maybe a junior, I think it's kind of tricky, right?
You're coming in, you're almost being your mini art director in that character department. They're hiring you because they don't have so much ideas. They may have specs and stuff written up, but you're the problem solver, you're the designer. You have to like art direct yourself, and you have to know how to research it. And to back it all up, if you have really strong foundational skills, that's just going to make your job easier.
In general, you would just advise like getting fundamentals ready, trying to become the best possible designer you can become, and then just trying to get in and then maybe specify on later.
I don't want to discourage you. I'm not saying you have to be the master, like understanding anatomy, understanding all these things. You don't have to be, because you could still get hired to be a character concept artist based on the project needs. But I want you guys to be prepared for the job, to be ready, to be like outperforming everyone else. That's my thing.
Yeah, and it's just an honest opinion. I think it's way more valuable than sugarcoating everything. So thanks for that. We have also a lot of questions very specific about character design itself. And I would just start with a very simple question. So, or maybe not simple, like what is for you personally a good character design?
Yeah.
Or let's say a successful character design.
A successful character design. Well, I mean, we definitely can't look at a piece of art and be like, well, something's off here, anatomy is off here, perspective. That's like immediately turn off, right? So I'm not saying everything has to be 100% realistic or this style or anything, but just super balanced. Someone who understands how to construct, how to design. That has to be super balanced, like color, anatomy, all that stuff. That's first, right? That's what I look for first. Second is, how interesting is the character? Am I sold immediately on this character? Am I resonating with this character's backstory? Like all that stuff has to show through, because you don't want to just have a two-dimensional. When I mean two-dimensional, I mean like a character that's like, it's very generic, it's very vanilla. You don't want that. Having good solid design with like really good character design, backstory, reasons, like the character have to have some soul. Those two combination needs to live together for me.
Character design can be very subjective, right? So it is mostly about clarity. Do you know a way on how to work on clarity to get a good design out?
So clarity, it comes in a couple of stages. Clarity comes in you yourself as a designer, understanding the functionality of your theme. For example, if the character is someone who's a tanky warrior, and whatever costume he has on has to have purpose and functionality. The more you understand where the source of the armor comes from, the more clear it's going to get. You're not making anything up. You're using proper reference to get that information from. So you yourself basically have to understand functionality and what tools. If you're looking at a tank for inspirational reference, you have to understand how a tank actually functions. So things like that, having clear knowledge of what you're using gives you clear ability to represent that in your art. And then the second part is obviously having clarity of your own technique, how you apply shadow, what's your line weight, stuff like that, knowing how to do that properly. So two combinations: technique, knowledge, clarity.
And the conceptual part of the character design routine, do you think there is a proper way to practice that? Like I think which is hard for most of the people, and also like reading through all the questions, is like coming up with your own character design, with your own, I say, unique character design. And it's also very hard because we see all the successful character designs which are also very well known and all that different characters. And I think the bar is so high for people. They cramp up and they fear and shy away on creating their own stuff and doing more fan art. And we have so much fan art on Artstation and everything. So do you think there is maybe a way for students or people who want to get into that on finding, I don't want to say unique because it has so much weight on it, but to come up with a cool idea for your own character design?
Yeah, I agree with you. With like everyone rather just sort of copy than create their own. And I think one thing to understand is there is no such thing as your own, because everything is related to one another. Everything is inspired by one another. Everything is related. Like nature, like we take things from nature, and like everything has been seen or created. It's how we kind of understand what we see and then take it and interpret it, right? So it's basically, you have to yourself have enough knowledge to understand the thematic elements, the reasons behind a certain design, and then like take it apart and then design it in your own manner. That's kind of how I approach it. If I want to like design my own character, just basically have a reason and a direction, and then understanding some of the core principles, and then taking that and then designing. I don't know if you want to like. I don't know if this is making sense. I might have to break it down some more.
Yeah, no, but it makes sort of sense. Like thinking about your Parasite Eve concept you recently just posted, which was a great example, which we also had in the class at Brainstorm, which for me was personally very interesting to see, because seeing all the concepts by all the other students, like how they approached it visually, to see like, okay, what could be a remake of Parasite Eve characters. And then I was very surprised about that, seeing that on Instagram. There was also a question asked, like, what is your personal take on creating a character for an existing IP? And how do you make sure that you not only create this character and stay in that zone of that IP, but you also add your own little taste to that?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a good question, because for students or anyone getting in an industry, because I mean, everything you're going to be working on, it's either a remake of an IP or is inspired or a spiritual successor. Everything we've seen that's successful, right? Like the Uncharted series, that's just inspiration of the Tomb Raider series, right? Which is an inspiration of Indiana Jones, and so on and so forth. If you look at God of War, that's basically a sequel to what the God of War universe has been doing in a different light, in a different theme. So understanding these things is important. That's kind of some of the stuff I cover in my class as well, of like how to tackle a remake project, and like looking at the source material, understanding the themes and motivations behind the character, keeping all those things intact and visible in your redesign, and then kind of bringing up your own like interpretation. So I kind of have them do a thing where like they take a remake project that's already existed. They can swap genres, but keep the core story, keep the core character designs intact, and like redesign it in a new light, making them understand how to research, and then keeping like understanding like why a character is this way, what visual aspects should retain, what colors, what kind of motifs should stay in combination with this new research in the Feudal Japan area. So things like that is kind of what I teach, and it is what it's involved in industry as we design these sort of spiritual successor products.
I mean, that makes total sense. So it sounds like that also the practice of taking an existing IP and trying to add a character to that could be a good exercise for a student to not only practice like the character design itself, but also like getting a feeling for how it is to work on a certain IP.
Yeah, it's very important, the research process. I mean, I'm sure there'll be questions on research, because that's, I mean, when you get into industry, that's what they're paying you for. They're like, okay, we want to redo this IP. We want to be inspired by this IP. Like, what do we research? How can we resonate with this thing that exists that people love so much? We're paying you to go do R&D on this. Like, do it, right? So it's very important.
So how much time on your daily work job do you spend so that people get a grasp of that? How much time do you spend on researching, and how much time do you spend on the execution part?
Researching is a lot of time, because I think going back to what we talked about before, once you get comfortable and confident in your actual technical skill, your tools, you don't need to worry about that. That part's going to be, it's going to be very easy once you get to it. So the research part is the more difficult part now. And that's the part where I can take up to 2 to 3 days researching just one character. And the reason for that is because I look at things that have existed, the source material, what other mediums like film, games, TV, music. I look at all those things to get inspiration from. And from the inspiration, I divide that reference that I can pick and choose, direct reference from, right? And then other sort of artists out there that have designed things in similar manner. So I have different categories of sort of research that I can draw upon. And that's, once I have all this information, the actual designing part, and you know what you're doing, it just takes like a couple hours.
Do you also do a lot of marketing art, or is this mixed for you? Do you concept and marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of marketing art, and that's usually towards the end. From industry standpoint, usually towards the end in the production, once you figure out all the previous designs.
There was also a question on how to train the perception of a character design, but not really on the design point, but more on working on the visualization versus the mind's eye. So you have an idea, but you can't really visualize it yet. What could you recommend on approaching that? Like, let's say, okay, I have this feeling of my childhood when I was a kid, running to the forest, playing with my toys, and I want to create a character around that. But I can't really know how to bring that on a sketch or on a certain like visual point. How would you approach that?
That's a good question, and it's a difficult one. It's a super important question because visualization in the mind's eye, that's something I rely on a lot. And I think it's a super unique thing, and not everyone can think of something and then interpret it on paper the exact way they do it. I think it's more of a mind to hand thing, and also then deals with like technical execution at the same time. Going back to training yourself to do that, I would say your visualization, it's good to also have a good visual library. If you're thinking of that scene in your mind, it's all about what has been done, because what has been done, these artists, designers have solved a lot of things for you. So if you could think of a scene in a movie that has a similar lighting situation, a similar shot, and you can kind of go gravitate towards that and find a certain scene for inspiration for reference use, that's going to be a good start already, because that scene has solved a lot of things for you. So then you just add on what you have, change camera angle, change color and mood, stuff like that. So that's one way of doing it. What I used to do in school is I would like go to coffee shops, I would look at someone and then like look away and then try to draw it in my notebook. So it's more like your memory type of thing. And to take it to extreme, if you want to take it further, you look at something or someone, you go back home, you wait a couple hours later, then you try to draw that again. So it's almost like you're building up your RAM memory, your most recent memory. You're trying to build that up more and more and more. So I would say that's a good advice for students.
I think that's a good approach, because you also not only practice the execution part, but also the observatory. Like you try to observe as much as you can for the next time you try to draw that.
Yeah, and we don't have, our minds are not, we don't know how to control it. So everything is just kind of like very dreamlike, and you're relying on relationships of values and like positioning of things to remember things. You're sort of making the other 40% up in your mind. So it's good training. It's good training for sure.
That's very interesting. So that's very interesting, because I also try to remember that so I can use it for myself. So let's say it's 2021 and you just finished college, or you finished art school, or you're about to finish art school, but your portfolio is just full with characters, with which you did, but there is no real company would potentially suits your style, in a way. Would you rather try to just apply with the portfolio you have then to all the companies who might suit your stylization or your realistic art, or would you adjust the portfolio overall, as we talked about it before, that you just would try to give them a more general buffet of all the stuff you can do?
To be more successful, I'd say it's better to cater towards a specific style, a specific company. And I think you're more goal-oriented that way. Otherwise, you're always kind of like shooting everywhere in the dark in hopes that you get something. You're kind of playing the lottery a little bit, and that's not a bad thing either. You can be exposing yourselves to people. They could potentially be like, we're gonna put this guy in the back pocket. It's not what we want right now, but it's kind of cool. So yeah, it's like good and bad at the same time. But I think it's better as a person, as an artist, it's better to be goal-oriented, to be like, I know what I want, I'm going to shoot for this, and I'm going to continue to improve upon this portfolio, this style. So it's just better to be organized like that, in my opinion.
Is there something you would love to know before you started your journey into this whole industry?
Before I started, I mean, if you're talking about the industry, what I did know when I was a student was that you're definitely not paid to be an artist. You're paid to be a problem solver, paid to be a designer, to research things for people. And this not only has to do with your tasks, this has to do with your teammates, the beliefs of the company and what they want from a pipeline perspective. It's more like even when you kind of work your way up the ladder and become manager, it's always about solving problems. It's always about communicating with other people properly, giving them the right information, and supporting them. It's about that. It's not about the art so much. The art is just the cherry on top. Like it's
Mm.
good that you can do really well. There's plus and bads in that. And then for me, someone who's more about the craft, you know, I look at that and be like, maybe it's not for me at this point in time. You know? So you gotta weigh your options.
Yeah, so it's more problem solving, supporting the pipeline, helping people, and it's less about sitting in your corner. Light is coming through the window,
Yeah,
butterflies.
Then, yeah. I mean, then you're just there. You're just being paid to be a shiny object for everyone to go, ooh, you know, and like, you know, do your daily post at work every day and make everyone impressed. I mean, that's not too helpful.
Do you sometimes have the feeling of you would just rather just do art instead of all the other stuff you have to do, like all the pipeline stuff and all that?
In a working environment, you mean?
In a work environment, yeah. Because I like how I also saw it on in different companies that like artists, like you said already, artists are not doing like 100% art. They're just doing like sometimes 50-50 or they do 60-40.
Yeah.
They have to do a lot of organization, writing emails, giving feedback, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it really changes. And like you said, you're really a problem solver. Would you say like you like the balance, or would you prefer like doing like only art overall?
It depends on who you are. So if you're someone who just want to do art, you might want to communicate with the team and dedicate yourself as for someone potentially being a principal artist, where you're just specialized in one thing. They're like, hey, this is a guy that we go to for solving this problem, making characters look really cool. And we can just work off of that. We can just bounce off of that. So you might want to be just a principal artist. But when you're a senior role, when you're a lead role, then you kind of have to balance it too. Sometimes you might not even have to do art. You have to be someone who's kind of communicating between our team, marketing team, or technical, right? You have to like be the guy in between. So you have to understand the pipeline, the workflow, technology. So you're just a communicator, problem solver at that point. And some people like doing that. We need people like that to make sure everything is clear, make sure that we don't waste time and money. So it's really up to you as a concept artist.
I would like to know, do you try to work on your character skills still after work or in between? Because you're very experienced, you work very long already in the industry. Do you still work on your skills in between? What are you doing to do that? Because you are already in a certain level, you know, and I guess the progression steps you can do, they get smaller and smaller and smaller the better you get. It would be interesting to know just what are you doing for getting better?
Definitely, yeah. Sometimes I'm not conscious of it. I should be conscious of it, but I'm always trying to improve myself. And there's no such thing as like, oh, I am a master of this. There's no such thing, because there's only a master of a category, and there's infinite amount of categories. So I'm only in category B, for example, right? And I want to get to A, and there's S, and then there's like S++. You know, it keeps going forever. So I'm at a spot where I'm in this section of plateau, and I have to defeat that. So I'm always I can only get to a point where I'm more conscious of things. My observation is better. So I think like in a video game, you're gaining twice as much as XP versus someone who's gaining only 0.5. So right now I'm seeing things more often than other people. So for example, I'll look at something that I'm doing and I just need to walk away for 30 minutes or an hour. Then I can come back and be like, oh, all mistakes are there. So I can see it immediately. Whereas 10 years ago, I wasn't able to see that. Maybe if you're starting out as a student, you won't be able to see that for the next 2 to 3 years, right? So that's the luxury that I get right now. But there's still so much to do because I'm still learning. In terms of what you said of what I do, I look at different artists, I look at different genres, I look at anime, I look at comic book, I switch around. You know, I'm never just doing one thing, and that's my fear. It's just being stuck at one thing. That's not how you grow. It's not how you level up.
At that note, I also have a very interesting community question for you, which was, would you be interested in drawing manga?
Of course, why not? Manga or American comic book. That's my basis of where I started.
So you would be interested in working like full time as a mangaka?
The pay is probably like nothing. For free, just because I have so much respect for that field and what those artists are doing, how much knowledge they have, right? These guys can draw anything from any angle and any style. It's like it's just a respected field. It's almost like someone who does oil painting.
Which are your biggest influences in terms of art?
I like to look at like the golden illustrators days of Ding Cornwell, John Singer Sargent, Zorn. That's kind of where my background and what I was influenced by, and I still am, because when I go back, the more I learn, the more I see how they're approaching their art, how they're breaking down their art. So I'm always going back to that in terms of my inspirations. Yeah.
In terms of painting or also about design?
Both.
Okay. Any more modern IPs you would love to work on? Or would love to create characters for?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of anything in manga, anime. If I could work on like anything on Square Enix, any Japanese title like Resident Evil, I 10 times slash my pay for that.
So name your top 3 manga.
I like My Hero Academia just for the story.
Yeah.
I love that. Berserk series is another one of my favorite. I'd say the older Evangelion, even though that was a shorter web series, that's a really good manga series. I mean, those are more story based, I guess, not so much art. The art is good. It's not like the best, but those are my favorite.
Another community question, which I found very funny to ask, but I just ask it. When you look at the Artstation front page, what do you think?
It depends, man. Like Artstation's up and down these days, and they always have good art. It's like a mix. Like it's definitely, the purpose is to advertise industry working professionals or people who potentially have the quality work to be picked up by industry professionals, right? But you kind of get a mix and match. I don't know if the quality control is on part of these days, but you kind of get a mix and match of quality art that is of maybe student or people who are more like hobbyist artists on there too. So it's a little mix. I don't know what to think these days anymore, because it's not what it used to be, where it's more catered. I don't know. I kind of just look at what's cool. Like, hey, this is cool. Like what they did, like, and it's like the quality is really good. I kind of just look at things that I can like get inspired from, and then I go away. That's what I do in Artstation.
Okay, so you take it as inspiration, because I heard it a lot in the community that people are more discouraged when they go on Artstation. They're so overwhelmed by all this good art, and they're like, oh my god, everything I create is like not close to that, and I will never be that good.
You know, it's not just students. Like I've asked colleagues, and it depends on how your mentality is. Some people look at things and they get depressed because they're like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to do this. And for me, I'm just like, whoa, this is really cool. I wonder if I can like try this out. I want to know how to do this. So for me, it's always like kind of exciting, and it's like motivating when I look at it. So I think it's better to see it in that light. And who cares if you can't do it? Just try it out. You know, it's inspiration juice. That's all you need.
Thinking about your future, like from your standpoint now, and you are also teaching a lot at Brainstorm. Where do you think, like, where is your way leading to? Do you think that you maybe in the future will do more teaching? Do you will go to a lead or art director position where you do even less art? Or do you see yourself like still always be this artist guy also in the production pipeline? Like
NFT, man, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
You got me on this one.
It could be. It's very enticing right now, for sure. But yeah, in terms of teaching, education, and industry work, I would like to balance the two, right? Whatever comes at me, I'm grateful for having. In terms of what I really want to do, I do want to concentrate on the more educational part, because I think it's very important that people who are starting out, or even people who want to get further in their craft like that, I think that's like super important. That we always kind of like appreciate the craft and where it comes from and how to understand it. That's always number one to me. Right, because industry, that's a job. You're trying to make a living to pay your bills. That's like another thing. So I want to sort of try to balance the two. And if I could just concentrate on one and make a living off of that, I would just do that, like on the education part. But it takes a little planning and stuff. And then do art on the side, do freelance on the side, or do my own project on the side. Right? So
you still do your own projects on the side?
Yeah. I always got to keep working on something. I don't want to just be catering a business to one thing and capitalizing on that. I want to also grow as a person and like researching on the side. It's kind of like if you're a martial artist, you do MMA, you know, you're fighting in these big fights, but you're always training at the gym at the same time with your team. And You know, you always do it. If you don't do that, then you're losing. You're not going to be able to be optimal in your actual job.
So do you also do not character work on your personal stuff? So environments or props, anything?
Yeah, I try to do everything. Programming, character art, 3D character art, texturing. But, I mean, I just don't show anyone any of that stuff because it looks like. But it tickles my mind in ways that the 2D realm doesn't. So I like to do that, and it helps me be better in my character art as well.
It is even still important that as someone who's working in a studio, who's spending a lot of time on working creatively, after a certain time, this shift is happening from first you try to get really good to get into the studio, then you are in the studio, and then you work so much.
Yeah.
And in your free time, you start then to ask yourself, okay, I do so much work, so much creative work. Do I have enough creative energy for my own stuff? So, I mean, it's great to hear that you still do that, but it's also very interesting to see. I just can compare it to myself when I joined my first company, that it was really focusing on my work. And then after work, I was done. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's normal. It's normal that we started as students. We're very excited to work on this project. We put all our heart and energy on this product at work, working for someone. And then when we get home, we're just out of energy. But I think as you kind of like get more experience and you move up, you get better in your craft, you get better in your work experience. You eventually learn how to balance the two. Like you understand that this is business, right? This is for business. When I get home, this is for me. This is who I truly represent. So you have to. Yeah, at that point, you have to decide like this, I need to separate these two. And then you can give your 50-50 energy or 60-40 or whatever.
I have another community question to ask, which I didn't wrote. I just want to say that. And also to give you context, we just had a live stream a week ago where we did 5 hours of portfolio reviews for the people of the community. Somebody was asking, can you join Janos for the next portfolio review session on his live stream?
Sure, man. I mean, I guess I'll be doing my own work, and then I'll just be, listening in. And if you need me to look at something, I'm totally down.
I mean, for me, that would be awesome. I think the question comes because we had, I think, 70% of the people wanted to go into the character route.
Sure.
So I think it would be interesting to hear your take on that. But I think we have to make sure that it's aligning in terms of time zone.
Yeah, for sure.
But maybe in the future we can.
You figure that out and just drop me an invite. I'll be there.
All right. See, people, we have this on camera.
I'm totally down. No, I'm down for this kind of stuff, helping students out and just, like looking at the art.
Do you still have your brainstorm class on at the moment? Or is it
going to be week 8? So 2 more classes after that.
Wow. And how many classes do you teach in a year?
In a year, so they go by semester, right? Like spring, summer, fall, winter.
4 times.
Maybe only 3. Maybe I'm saying more than 1, but around 2 or 3 from what I can remember. Yeah, and sometimes I skip too. So.
Wow. Okay, that's really a lot. Is there anything you wanted to give the students and all the upcoming character artists, all the people who want to be in this industry and to work really on characters?
Young, you're studying. Take this time to train. You have to treat art very seriously. You have to treat it like you're a martial artist or a pro basketball player. You're doing, what do? They do training like every day of the week just for one game of this month or whatever, right? So you have to treat it like that. It's just not. If you're serious about getting into the industry and becoming like one of the best, you have to do that. It's not. You could definitely be a hobby artist, and it depends on your life situation and whatnot. But I would say like if you go hardcore, do that. If it's not affecting your lifestyle in any way, do that. Train, get all the fundamentals, and that's going to be the most important. And that's just a good start. Once you get that wrapped up, then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's great motivation. Where can people find you? Artstation, Instagram. I will put everything in the description.
Sure. Yeah. So Instagram. I go by Zuyan online, HZUYAJ. So Instagram, Artstation, Twitter, all the same handle. You can find me there. I'm not, unfortunately, I'm not very online most of the time. My social presence is not really good. I don't post too much. That's like another topic we can. But maybe in the future, right? I got to market myself somehow. But maybe in the future, maybe Janos can help me promote myself somehow.
Sure. Love to.
But I whatever I have, it's like very little stuff. So check it out.
Also, I definitely can say really check out Gu's work. He's really, really good. Check out his Instagram, Artstation. I'll put everything in the description below. Also, if you're interested in maybe learning from Gu, definitely check out his brainstorm class. I took the class already. If you want to know more about it, you can also check my previous videos. I talk about his class. I talk about what is actually the core of the class. For me, it was a very great experience. It was also great to meet Gu, of course. But, I can definitely recommend who is interested in getting into the field of character design. Thank you so much for coming to the channel and sharing all your knowledge, all your secrets.
That was only 9% of my powers.
The only oh.
No, we got the video is just like going to the next level. It's just like, oh, this is level 2 right here.
All right.
There you go.
All right. You called it out. We were gonna do that. Now we have it on camera.
All right.
That's great. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the session with Gu and myself. Big thanks again to Gu for spending time with us. If you also appreciate the time we put into making that video, feel free to like this video, subscribe, and maybe give us a lovely comment, letting us know if this information, all this episode, if that was helpful for you. Just let us know in the comments. Otherwise, we wish you an awesome day. A lot of luck on pursuing your dream to become a character designer, character artist. Thanks everyone.
See you. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.